Okay, so I'm here with Helena Walsh of Darragh Equestrian Solutions. We had a number of readers sending in their questions, so Helena has very kindly offered to answer all of your queries. So we might just start with asking Helena to give us a little bit of background about herself and her study in becoming a master saddler.
Okay, well, I started out a little over 6 years ago. It was kind of accidental. I had a bad saddle,
Okay.
and I met good people.
Yeah.
The saddle that I had, the tree had actually warped,
Okay.
and it was sitting like that on the horse. So the point on the left-hand side was digging right into his.
Okay.
And as a result, you got to ride him, he came out, he was crabby, narky, bucky,
Yeah.
and it would take 20 minutes every time just for the horse to settle.
Yeah.
And you like to rule stuff out, so I brought him to this physio, and I had the wit to bring my saddle with me.
Yeah.
And I just said, can you just let me know, what do you think?
Yeah.
He popped the saddle on the horse. We got on a stepladder at the horse's head, looked down his back, and you could see the saddle like that.
Change. Yeah.
Amazing. So he said, get out of that saddle. Never put it on the horse again.
Okay.
So I had to go back to a very old saddle that I'd had years earlier, and hated it. So I then was in a panic, needed a saddle, needed to ride my horse. Spoke to quite a number of saddle makers. Nothing really clicked. Almost made a mistake. And then I met the people from Vale Brothers at a trade fair in Germany.
Okay.
And Janet Blackburn, who became my mentor, I met her and I was talking to her, and she was so generous with her knowledge and her training and her experience. We just got to know each other. We got to know each other even better when we came back. They were coming over to Ireland to work with the retailer.
Yeah.
I sat in on the whole thing, and we ended up where I was going to do the saddles in Ireland.
Okay.
So there followed a lot of factory visits,
Yeah.
and Janet was always available anytime I needed guidance or help. The manager in the saddle factory is a saddle fitter himself.
Okay.
So there's a lot of expertise there.
And she was obviously enthusiastic for you to study it a little bit more
Exactly.
in depth. And what would the course involve? So what kind of, are you looking at horse anatomy, or where does it begin? What's the kind of foundation, I suppose, of the study?
You start with the Society of Master Saddlers,
Okay.
or is the governing body, and they do an introductory course, and it's quite broad. It gives you the basic knowledge and structure that you need to follow,
Yeah.
and then you work under a master.
Okay.
In my case, it was Janet, and then I went back to do the final. It's an exam course, so you're
Okay.
there for a week.
Yeah.
And yes, anatomy, because you've got to understand the anatomy of
Yeah.
the
and
horse.
how the saddle affects the horse
Exactly.
and the way it's going.
And-
And it's 6 years in total that.
No, you could do
course
it. You could do it quicker.
Okay.
I didn't.
Okay. Yeah. You chose to just take your time. And
Exactly.
go for it.
And
Yeah.
it's also actually quite difficult to get on the course because it's very, very oversubscribed.
Okay.
I mean, the Society of Master Saddlers, they're the support organisation for saddlers, saddle fitters, and anything related.
And in recent times, do you think there's more of I suppose, a thirst for knowledge from horse owners to get that extra little bit of expert advice,
Yeah.
not going out on your own, seeking advice from the right people? Do you feel that people are engaging with you
Definitely.
probably a lot more now?
Definitely.
Yeah. And how has saddle design kind of changed in the last number of years? We're seeing these sort of mono-flap designs now and blocks
Yeah.
on the saddles and things like that. Why have those things come about, or where do they stem from? Was it the riders looking for extra support, or the saddle fitters themselves coming up with the ideas?
It's probably a combination.
Okay.
In the case of Vale Brothers, you've got a lot of in-house expertise in saddles, in the fact that you've got actual saddle fitters working
Okay.
there. You're always looking to improve.
Yeah.
It's like everything.
Yeah.
And then a lot of riders are sponsored
Yeah.
by saddle manufacturers. They'll give their feedback,
work quite
what works
closely.
for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then a lot of it is just human, ordinary Joe on the street. I would like this, I would like that. And the saddle manufacturers have become much more flexible and open-minded.
Yeah.
For such a long time, a saddle was a saddle.
Yeah. You took
And
what
they
you
all
got
looked the
and that
same.
was it, yeah.
And they were a lot of the time they were quite boring and sometimes ugly.
So it's good now that the riders have kind of almost built up a relationship with the people they're working with, and they obviously transfer knowledge between each other and work together. There's part of the team as all of the staff around caring for the horses. Big
Absolutely.
Part of that. And so when you're going to fit a horse and rider, where would you start? Do you start with the rider themselves, or would you begin with the horse, or how does it work? How would the process start?
A little bit of both.
Okay.
Generally speaking, if I get somebody contacts me, I like to get as much information as I can.
Okay.
The height of the rider, the weight of the rider, the discipline that they're riding in,
Okay.
what they're looking for. They're looking for dressage, jump, GP. What's the budget?
Yeah.
What's their time frame? Because the model that I operate, I tend to do a lot of bespoke work.
Okay.
So I don't have a shop full of saddles.
There. Yeah. Okay.
And I mean, you could have 50 saddles in a room and still not have the right saddle for the combination that's standing in front of you. So, okay, armed with the basic information, I would bring quite a number of demos.
Okay.
And generally speaking, a demo, it's an average size. I also use risers and pads to make sure that the saddle is balanced.
Okay. And can you explain how people would judge if the saddle is balanced? Because sometimes people don't really understand what exactly that means, or what are you looking for? How would you realise that a saddle is balanced on the horse's back?
Well, if the saddle isn't balanced, the rider is either going to sit back, their legs are out in front of them, like a chair.
Okay.
So generally speaking, that's when the saddle is too narrow. It's up in front, down at the back.
Okay.
If, on the other hand, the saddle is too wide, they could tip forward. And they won't know why.
Okay.
They just won't be comfortable.
These are the signs that people need to look out for and recognise quickly that it's not working for them. And
Exactly.
Yeah.
And part of the job of the saddle fitter is to determine, is to balance. It's like putting the spoon on your finger, right? When you have it all balanced, you can walk around the room with it.
Yeah.
Whether, so
if it's off ever so slightly.
Yeah. So then first of all, then you would do a good examination of the horse.
Okay.
Really to determine that he has no underlying problems, ailments, injuries, history that would affect the fit of a saddle.
Okay, and what kind of ailments would affect the fit of a saddle then? What kind of injuries or ailments?
Could be injuries, could be asymmetry.
Okay.
And a lot of horses are uneven.
Yeah, different on one
side to the other.
On one side.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
And particularly horses with a bit of mileage up.
Yeah.
Lameness.
Yeah.
Unsoundness of any description.
Okay, so the horse needs to be right, fit and healthy really before the saddle's going...
No, if you have an injury, you're going to have to deal with it in some way.
Okay.
And each one of them can be unique. And then you look at the horse in motion with no tack on.
Okay.
So I usually get the owner to walk them in a triangle on both reins, and same in trot. You usually have a fair idea then what you're dealing with.
Okay.
Then you're looking at your rider.
Yeah.
Are they very tall? Have they very, very long hip to knee?
Okay.
What do they like in a saddle? Do they like a really deep saddle?
Yeah.
Do they like to ride quite short?
Yeah.
So whilst they might not be a tall person, because they ride short, you need to build the front of the saddle around them. So there's all those factors,
all those things are coming into
it's as important to find a saddle to fit the rider as it is to have the saddle suitable for the horse.
And once you get that saddle, once the rider has decided that they like the style and they're comfortable sitting in it, and then you go to pop that saddle up on the horse's back, what would you be looking at then on the horse, with the saddle fitted on the horse, to kind of see that it's sitting correctly and that it's comfortable then? How can horse owners judge if the saddle is fitting correctly along the horse? What would you check for?
Well, if you look at if I had a saddle here, it'd be actually easier, but you're basically looking for balance. For example, if you were to put a marble in the middle of the saddle, that marble would stay there.
Okay.
So you have an imaginary marble in your head, and you're looking to make sure the back isn't up and the front is down.
Okay.
The front and the back is down. You're looking for that balance.
Yeah, and then what about space, say, around the withers? Because
absolutely, you've got to have
pinches or
absolutely.
Marks. Yeah.
You've got to make sure that you've got clearance at the side.
Okay.
You also have to make sure there's no bridging.
Okay.
The panel underneath, that's where there's a gap.
Yes.
Again, it may be the conformation of the horse, or maybe bad panel work in the saddle.
Okay.
You've got to make sure there's clearance over the wither area and right through along the spine, because
and how much clearance? So for the average horse owner, what is enough and what's verging on too tight or too wide? How would they?
2-3 fingers.
2-3 fingers.
Girthed.
Yeah. And always, is it important to always girth the saddle before you go to check the fit? Would that have an effect on how the saddle lies versus ungirthed?
I'd pop the saddle on
Okay.
with nothing on underneath. Do that check for the side, the panel, the clearance, the balance,
Yeah.
and then if we're good to go, girth it up. Then I'd like to check the rider on it
Okay.
before they even move off. And then really then it's up to them. It's about them then.
Yeah.
They can walk, they can trot, they can jump, they can
They're
whatever they
comfortable
want.
in it. Yeah.
It's their test drive.
Okay, and then where do saddle pads and riser pads and all these things come into play then? If the saddle fits correctly, should the horse require those kind of things? Is it more just for the look, or when do they become important then, or when should riders be looking to use those pieces of equipment?
Well, sometimes it is about look.
Okay.
The white fluffy stuff.
Yes, yeah.
Horses change. The horses can change twice a year.
Yeah.
Because in winter time, psychologically they're thinking, okay, it's cold, so I need my food to keep me warm.
Yeah.
Whether they're being fed, whether they're rubbed, it makes no difference. Psychologically, it's like giving up smoking.
Yeah.
You give up smoking, you generally put on weight.
Okay. Yeah.
So winter time, you've got a little bit of top line lost.
Yeah.
So you've got to fill the space.
Okay.
And that's where rises come in. And there's so many options nowadays
Yeah.
in terms of rises. What you're basically doing is ensuring that the balance stays. Either artificially. If you have to do it artificially, it's fine. The most important thing is the comfort of the horse.
Okay. Yeah, that's paramount. And then what about reflocking the saddle? Maybe after how many years should a rider kind of consider checking the flocking, or when should they check that?
Really, ideally, a saddle should be checked twice a year.
Twice a year. Okay.
Very few people do it.
Okay.
In Ireland. I'm sure some do, but in England it has become quite the norm. It's like you buy a nice car, nice motor car.
Yeah.
Don't you maintain
You
it?
get services, yes,
Exactly.
absolutely.
And sometimes flock can compress, and it might just need a little bit of tweaking,
Yeah.
which some saddle fitters can do on site.
Okay.
So really, I mean, once a year, but twice a year is ideal.
And is it relatively inexpensive, or this isn't an expensive thing to do, or?
Well, if it's only a small adjustment, then
Okay,
it's
it shouldn't be anything major.
No.
And would you recommend, I suppose a lot of people might have, the saddle that they're comfortable in, but may ride 2 or 3 different
Yes.
horses. What is your advice on doing that? Is that recommended, or should they have a saddle per horse? What's the ideal?
You'd love to think that they would, but it's not going to happen because you've got professional riders where they've got horses in for a period of time and then they're going back to their owners or they're going to be sold. Generally speaking, when I'm working with a professional rider that has multiple horses, you got to go to the yard. You got to have a look at the average type. I mean, our Irish sport horse has evolved from the thoroughbred Irish draft cross.
Yeah.
We now have all the foreign blood influence, and that has given us like a hybrid, which has certain common features.
Yeah.
And then you have your Irish horse. Generally speaking, I always think of them as a house. They've shallower withers.
Okay.
They come out like that and then they go down.
Yeah.
So usually you can divide the yard in 2.
Okay.
You can say these horses
Riding
and
this
these
saddle
horses.
and these.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And there's an average width fit, it depends on the make, but there's an average measurement that tends to work with a big percentage of horses.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Now you may always have a unique shape
Horse,
that
yes.
will need its own saddle
Okay.
if you want to be good to it and you want to get results.
And you're riding on it for a long period of time. You're
Exactly.
keeping this horse in work.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then talk about maybe the different materials that are used on the saddle. You see different synthetics now, and then you have the traditional leather style, and different types of leather. What would be your preference, or what would you recommend for your average amateur rider? Who's doing a bit of hunting, a little bit of everything. What's the most durable material, I suppose, in the saddle?
Well, you see, synthetics are inexpensive and convenient.
Okay.
You can hose them down.
Yeah. Clean. Yeah.
I'm not a big fan, personally speaking.
Okay. Any particular reason for that, or just the style of them?
I just think that they're a little bit unforgiving.
Okay.
They tend to be quite hard.
Okay.
Now I'm sure they're evolving massively.
As well. Yeah.
I just haven't worked with them.
Okay.
Leather is the original saddle.
Yeah.
You can get different kinds of leather. You can get calfskin, which is beautiful and soft.
Yeah.
You can get buffalo, which can take quite a while to break in.
Yeah.
But when it's broken in, it's beautiful and soft.
Yeah.
I mean, and then on the flocking, you can have a composite foam,
Yeah, okay.
which does tend to give the rider great comfort.
Yes.
But unless it's maintained, it can actually be quite detrimental to the horse.
Okay.
Because as it over time, as it compresses, it's going to compress where the most pressure is on the girth,
And if you're off,
and your saddle's going to go.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, it can be repaired.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Peel it off, throw them in the bin, and put new
And the saddle,
panels on.
the saddle will make you a new
With flock, it's easier. You can just literally open up the panel, rip all the old dead flock out, and put in lovely fresh stuff, and you basically have
your new saddle.
a new saddle.
So Helena, maybe you could offer us some of your top saddle care tips. What kind of issues should people be looking out for with their tack? Signs that the saddle or the leathers might be wearing. What should people be looking out for?
Exactly, stitching.
Okay.
You've got girth straps. And if the stitching is in any way raveled or the leather is starting to look cracked or damaged, again, the panels, just make sure there's no lumps and bumps.
Okay.
Because if you think about it, that's straight onto the horse's back and with the rider's weight on top. When you're cleaning your saddle, and there's some fantastic products available on the market now.
Is there any products you might recommend, or what kind of ingredients? I suppose you want something quite oily, or for the soaps maybe. What's good kind of quality ingredients? I suppose should people be using?
Well, if you get a saddle from new or any leather, the first thing I would say to people is oil it.
Okay.
Because it's been treated and it's been probably sat in a shop or whatever for some time, and they dry.
Okay.
And when you're oiling, you can actually see the leather drinking it. Then, on a regular basis, clean it.
Yeah.
Just get dirt off, dust, dirt, whatever, and then use a good saddle soap.
And then use
And it's like soap for hands. Everybody has their own personal preference.
Yes, yeah. So find what works best for you, I suppose.
Exactly.
And
yeah.
say if you've maybe been out hunting, or you've done some cross country, and your tack has got wet, what would you advise people to do in that case? Should they put it somewhere warm and dry and just leave it there, or what should they do with their tack when it's wet and they want to sort it out?
First thing I would do is clean it. Swipe it down with a damp cloth. And if you have time and you're in the mood, give it a clean, give it a treatment. Because a lot of soaps are conditioners as well.
Okay.
And then most saddles come with a cover. I would say just bring it into room temperature.
Yeah. So nowhere too warm.
Exactly. Don't put it on direct heat. Like, for example, don't leave it in the boot of your car with the sun beating down on it for 3 days.
Or beside a radiator.
Or beside a radiator, exactly.
Not a good idea. Okay.
It's what you do to yourself.
Yeah.
If you had your shoes all wet
Absolutely. And things. Just again, you mentioned earlier, that you would ask people what discipline they're involved in. What are the benefits of people having their saddle specifically for the discipline that they're riding in? So say riding in a dressage saddle versus your general purpose, what does that offer the rider? What benefits are there having the saddle fit for purpose, I suppose?
Well, at a very basic level, you wouldn't go jumping big fences in a dressage saddle. The dressage saddle, it puts the rider in the classical position. Your legs extend much further down, and you're moving the horse through your body. And a dressage saddle facilitates greater feel and position of the rider.
Yeah.
Whereas in the jump saddle, the rider's in a forward seat. It's easier to get out of it. You're moving, it's an open seat. A lot of dressage saddles tend to be very deep because it's keeping the rider
Secure
in the position.
Yeah.
Whereas with jumping, you want to be out.
Yeah.
You want to be moving. Use your body weight to work with the horse. And then a GP is really for somebody who wants to do a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
They might want to do a bit of hunting. They might want to do. Now, personally, I wouldn't hunt in a GP saddle.
Yeah.
But they basically want to do a bit of everything.
Yeah.
So it's
and
kind
they're
of
right for that. Yeah, absolutely. And then how closely, how often would you work with the likes of a vet or physio? Would you have a lot of crossover, would you find, or?
Well, when I do. If I see a horse with a problem, I will always take a history of the horse anyway.
Yeah.
What illnesses had they in the past? Were they out of work for a period of time? Are they just coming back into the work? What's their fitness level? And if they do have an injury and I think it's severe, or I think it will impact the fit of the saddle in any way, I would either consult their vet or ask them to consult their vet and maybe talk to them afterwards, or a physio.
Rather than going forward and finding an issue down the line. Yeah, it's important to work with everyone. Yeah.
And the horse is the one who benefits at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. And in turn the rider and the success of the team together. Well, listen, Helena, thank you so much for
pleasure.
answering all of our questions. It was great chatting to you.